I truly cannot make these videos fast enough. CAD Sketcher 0.24 is out and it has a whole bunch of updates, including some new tools and things that everybody has been asking for. Now, I'm going to show you all of those updates very quickly, and then I want to show you how I make this right here using quite a few of those new updated features. So to start it all off, we have a new radius constraint shortcut with Alt-R. By the way, speaking of shortcuts, now there is new hints for all of the shortcuts. Just put your mouse over any of the buttons and it will tell you the shortcut. Plus, there's a new shortcut sheet linked down in the description as well. So there's also less obtrusive dimensional arrows. There's also scaling for these arrows to make them bigger, not the line width bigger, only the actual size of the arrows. Then we've also fixed a little name bug, which was the name wasn't renaming the solid, the mesh that was being made when you renamed the sketch. Now you can do it that way, and there's a new update function right next to the add sketch. There's got this little arrow thing that force updates the sketch, and that also renames the mesh that was made from that sketch. And that's also really important when you're actually doing sketch to sketch referencing. Remember, that can only work from the same work plane at the moment, and that way when you see that things don't quite line up correctly, press that force update and it will fix it all up. Then on top of that, there is the add sketch in the add menu. I know it sounds pretty obvious, but it's in there. We have entity naming as well. There is also the switch the active tool when going in and out of sketch mode. So if you have the selecting of CAD Sketcher inside of CAD Sketcher, when you go outside of the sketch, it's going to go to the normal Blender selection. That was one that was really getting on my nerves. Then we also have constraint visibility toggling. So if you have way too many constraints on your screen, you can hide them all, or you can hide individual ones. It's up to you now. So from there, we have the amazing new update, which is the trim tool. Keep in mind that it's still a little bit of work in progress. It makes a couple of extra little coincident points here and there, so just be aware while using it, but it works brilliantly, and a little bit more feedback on that would always be worthwhile. The shortcut for that one, by the way, is Y. Just think of it as a trimmed X. That's the way I sort of remembered it. Then we also have new panel hierarchy, which means that on the side in our side menu of the N, well, that sort of the hierarchy of that has changed, and you can also change these about. Then there is the new vertical and horizontal constraints between points. This is one that I've really been wanting, and now we have it. And lastly, something that seems really sort of obvious, which is you can now do a distance by just selecting a line and doing a distance of the line instead of going point to point and then a distance, and that has made things so much faster. There is also one other little one, which is constraint selectability modifier, which basically means that, let's say you have a constraint on top of a point. If you don't want to select the constraint that's getting in the way and you're trying to select that point, just hold down Shift and you will not be able to select the constraint. It will just be the sketch that you'll be selecting underneath. Okay, now with that all said, let's go and create this lovely little clip right here. Starting with a nice, clean, precision-ready Blender file, let's get straight into it. I'm going to delete the cube, I'm going to press Ctrl-Shift-A, and I'm going to select a plane. So I'm going to go for this plane right here. I will press 3 on my numpad to go and snap to that view, and let's start taking a look at our technical drawing to do our first line here, which is going to be a line that gives us a reference of sort of how big this is going to be. So I'll press Alt-D to do a dimension. I'm going to set this dimension here. Taking a look, it's going to be 65 in total. Put that in. Now I can see about the size this is going to be. Fantastic. So now that I have this as a reference, I can start to put down some more lines. So I'm going to put in a line. I'm going to click from here up to there. That's going to be over constrained though. So I'm just going to delete that vertical, and then I'll press L once again for line. And I'm going to do a line this way, then a line back down like so, across here, up, across, down, across, back, up, and across over to there. Now, you might be wondering why I've done that. I've done that on purpose because I want to show you a nice trim tool. So we're going to put this right there. I'll press Y for the trim tool, and I'm just going to trim here, trim there, and then I can trim this all the way around like so. Then I can select all of these points and lines, and just delete them away. Now I'm going to use the trim tool again, but this time with a circle. So I'll press C for circle. I'm going to do a circle this way here and another circle right there. And I'm going to now trim this away. So let's go over here, making sure that there's no overlapping too much of these circles, because we're obviously going to be trimming. So I'll press Y, I'll trim that out, then I'll trim this and that, I'll trim this out, and then I'll trim this and that. Just be aware that currently the trim tool does sometimes leave some extra coincident points that we just need to deal with. So I'm going to select these two, press Shift T to tangent it, Shift T to tangent those, Shift T to tangent these, and Shift T to tangent that there. Now I'm going to add some radiuses, so I'm going to go Alt R for radius dimension. This one here, from what I can see, is 15, and then this one here, Alt R, this is telling me that it is, taking a look, 6. Okay, so now that we have those, I think it's time to add a dimension for what exactly this is going to be here. So I'm going to move this line here. I'm going to create myself a construction line that's going to go here. So right-clicking that, turning it to construction. I'm going to set a dimension to that, so Alt-D. I'm going to set that to 10. And now there's a lot of things on this sketch that are also 10. So I'm going to use this as sort of a space to equal. So I know these two are going to be equal to one another. I know these two are equal to one another. And I know this one and that one are equal. I know that this one here is a dimension. Let's put in Alt D and set that to be 6. And I also know that from this point to this point, so that is going to be Alt V for vertical, is also 6. And then I also know that up here, this line here needs to be that 10, but I can't get to it due to the construction line. So let's right click and just hide the visibility of that. Then I can select this one, select that line there, press Shift E for equal, and there we have it. Now we have one problem here, which is this point, and this point needs to be horizontally constrained. So let's go and press Shift H, and now we can do horizontal constraints with points. I'm going to press N on my numpad, open up my sketcher side. I've got 2 degrees of freedom left, and they're pretty obvious, which is this one right here and this one right here. So these 2 points right there, let's press Alt D. This one is going to be 45. So let me just make sure that I get this right. There it is, 45. And then from this point right there over to the point right there, let's press Alt D, and this one should be 38. Now, the reason why I know it's 38, it's because we're going to do 76 divided by 2, and that gives us the 38. You'll see that our degrees of freedom is completely sorted out. This is perfect. I'm going to call this the core underscore clip. And now that we've done that, I'm going to turn this into mesh and leave it. Okay, here we have our core clip. I'm going to select this, go into our modifiers, and I'm going to do a mirror modifier. Because if you noticed, we only did half the sketch there. So let's go and make sure that this is going to be merging at that middle point. I'm going to set this to 0.1. We don't need 0.001. That's a little bit too precise sometimes. So then let's also do a solidify now. So right here we have solidify. I'm going to set the offset to be 0. So from the center, and we're going to go for the widest width here, which is 71. Hit that, and there we have it. Okay, now let's start with that pipe up at the top. So I'm going to click the create work planes from mesh, and I'm going to click here. Now you're going to see the work plane isn't set to the center of that face. So we've got to sort that out. So I'm going to right click on this solve point, which is the origin. I'm going to set this to 0 there. And then on the Y, I'm also going to set it to 0. So right click and setting that there to 0 as well. So now we know that is exactly 65 millimeters up, which it should be, and there we have it. Unfortunately, we still don't have our referencing system, but don't worry, that should be coming in the future versions of CAD Sketcher. So now that we have this in place, let's add a new sketch. Let's use this work plane right here. We're going to press C for a circle, do one circle, and then do another circle. Now this is pretty simple. This circle here with Alt O, the diameter of it is going to be 50, and then we're going to select this circle, Alt O, and we're going to do the diameter of this one is going to be 25. This should be fully defined now. I'm going to set this as the pipe, and then I'm going to turn this into a mesh and leave it right there. I'll select that mesh that we have, and I'm going to do a solidify in the positive direction. And then from there, I'm going to go for a thickness of the height, which the height here is set to 25. And there we have it. Now we need to do that hole though. So let's make sure that we can still see that pipe right there. And I'm going to create yet another sketch for the hole. So I need to open up my entities here and turn on the sketch visibility, which is this one down here. This is an origin point. So let's go with that one right there. Let's add a sketch, the same work plane. And because it is the same work plane, it means that we can reference off these sketches right here. So I'll do another circle. We're going to go from this point. I'm going to go outwards to about here. I wouldn't recommend clicking on any of these right this minute, just because it's not set up correctly just yet. So I would select these two then, press Shift-E to make them equals, and you'll see that that is fully defined. This one I'm going to be calling the pipe underscore hole. Brilliant. I'm going to be turning that into mesh, and I'll leave it. I'll select the mesh that we just created here. I'm going to hide the pipe now, and let's go over to our modifiers. Let's do a solidify, and I'm going to solidify this again with a 0 on the offset. I'm going to go for as much as 25 so that I know it's going right the way through. Now I have the bool tool already activated in my preferences. So here over in preferences add-on, if you look up bool tool, that's what I'm about to use. I'm going to select our pipe, shift select our core, and I'll press Control numpad plus, and that has now united those two. I'm going to select the bounding box, press H to hide it. I'm then going to select our cutting object for the pipe, shift select our core clip and Control minus, and there we have the hole now in place. So now that you know that little workflow right there, I'm sure you can guess what we're going to do for the last little bits here of that profile cut and those two holes. Now very quickly, let me just mention that CAD Sketcher is heavily under development and truly needs your support to carry on. Just $2 a month really goes really far, especially when we're talking about hundreds of you. For all of you here, thank you so much for your support. Truly, it's going to be amazing to be able to get CAD Sketcher done faster thanks to you guys. Okay, with that said, let's dive straight back into that sketch. So let's first do those two little holes, and then we'll deal with a profile cut. So we'll add a new sketch. We're going to go from the top down. Now, unfortunately, this is a brand new sketch from a brand new work plane, so we can't reference off anything. So we need to create ourselves a reference line that's going to let us know how long this is widthwise. So I'm going to turn that into a construction line. I'm going to do a dimension of this one, set the dimension of this to be 71, and I'm going to center constrain that to the origin point right here. Now, when that happens, hold down Shift and we will be able to click things through constraints. So let's press Shift M. There we have it. Fantastic. And now let's bring in the hole. Now I'm going to mirror this all the way around. So I only need to bring in one. So I'll press C, make a circle here. Let's do the diameter of this one. So let's go Alt O. The diameter that is set for this is going to be 12. And then here's the tricky thing. I need to reference off that line and then the origin, I'm pretty sure. So let's see, taking a look at the technical drawing, it is these two here, and that is going to be, I think, a Shift V. No, is that? No, that's wrong. It's a Shift, sorry, an Alt H for a horizontal, and I'm going to be setting that to be 23 plus 25. And that gives us the positioning in this direction. Then I'm going to select this point here, the origin point here, go Alt V this time, and here the distance that I need to go for is 126 divided by 2. And that is now fully defined and ready to go. So I'm going to be calling this the, what should I call this? The clip holes. Let's go for, or screw holes. Let's go for screw holes. because that's what I think this would be for. So screw holes. And let's turn that over into mesh, leave the sketch, select it once again. Let's go and do a mirror. Now it's mirrored it once, but I want to mirror it again. So let's click on Y and it's mirrored it across there. Okay, now that I've done that, let's do a solidify. Let's put this over in the positive. Let's bring this up by 15. And now that we've done that, I can click, shift click, control numpad minus, and that is those holes in place. Press H to hide that cutting object. And now we only have one last little sketch to do. So let's do exactly that. Add a sketch. We're going to go in this direction this time. That is numpad 1 to look in that direction. And now that we've done that, what exactly are we trying to do? Well, we have an arc for sure that's going to be like this. We have a line that's going upwards, and then we need to create a cutting object that's going to cut the profile like so. Now, these two here, they're going to be tangent to one another, but we don't know if this one's tangent at all, so let's not bother with that. Now, we don't have any references, unfortunately, that we can be using here, so we're going to have to create ourselves a reference line. So let's create ourselves a reference line right there. Turn this into a construction line. I think we're going to also need a reference line in this direction for the height. So let's turn that into a construction line. The distance of this line here is going to be our width, which is 71. And then right here, we know that the distance of this one should be 12 because that is 6 plus 6. And now I'm going to center constrain that one with that one, but be aware that this can flip this one in a weird way. And I just wanted to show you it. So let's press, here we go, Shift M. It's now flipped it down, and just the way of the beast, sometimes you have to go in here and click flip, and that will then let you flip it upwards. But because the flip is happened because of this, we actually have to delete this, bring this upwards, and then select those two. This is a little bug that I'm sure is going to probably get fixed in the next day. But just letting you know that that's what I encountered while doing this. So we're going to have that like that. And now that we have this all in place right there, let's add a radius set here. This radius is set to 10. And then the height of this doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to put in a height here, put in a distance this way. Oops, that is not right. Let's put in Alt D here, brilliant, and Alt D this way. These 2 points right there, I want them to be coincident. Brilliant. And now all that's left is this dimension right here. And just because I want to be able to see this cleaner, I'm just going to go into my visibility here and turn off the mesh. Okay, now we can see things a little bit cleaner. And what I wanted to do is going from this point here to this point right here. We're going to go for an Alt H for a horizontal distancing. And the distance set here, well, let's take a look at the technical drawing. That would be 61 divided by 2. So there we have that in place. This should all now be perfectly defined and all the rest. So I'm going to call this profile cut. So profile underscore cut. Let's turn that over into a mesh. Let's also make sure that I set that like that. Then let's leave. Here we have the profile cut there in place. Let's select it. You've pretty much guessed what I'm going to be doing here. We're going to do a mirror once again, and it's mirroring across the X, which is exactly what we're wanting. And then let's do a nice big solidify. I'm going to set the offset again to 0. I'm going to make this solidify maybe a big 90. Oh, maybe need more. So let's go for 150. Brilliant. So that's exactly what I'm wanting there. Then I'm going to select this, shift click this, control numpad minus, and there is our clip now done. And once again, this is fully parametric. We can go into any of these. So let's go for the screw holes. Let's edit this sketch right here. I want to change this, I don't know, let's say to 15. Well, that's done there. I leave, and then if I wanted to make sure that it's updated, I can click here to force update it if other things haven't updated correctly. But you know what? I'm not going to do anything else like that. I'm going to go back to those holes, oops, the screw holes that is, I'm going to change this back to what the technical drawing tells us, because we should keep to the technical drawing, right? And then with that at 12, let's leave that there, and let's get this completely ready for 3D printing, for instance. So then, to do that, all I have to do is select this, press Shift D, and you'll see that things go a little bit weird. Don't worry, just right-click, cancel the movement. We've created a copy. Now, with this copy, we need to apply all the modifiers. Now, if you don't have this apply all, this is over in our preferences. You'll find it under modifier tools. And this is the add-on that's with Blender. With modifier tools and with this one selected, just click apply all. This has now applied all of them. And now when you press G and move this out, this here is now ready to go. Just very quickly, let's give it a little mesh look. So I'll press Tab to take a look at it in edit mode. That is looking beautifully clean. That is exactly what I'm wanting. Let's just give it another 3D print check as well. Why not? So it checks all of this is pretty much perfect. We have a couple of intersecting faces. It says some non-manifold, which I'm not entirely sure where that is. So let's take a look. It's saying non-manifold. Where are you, non-manifold? Let's go for vertices. So non-manifold vertices, where are you? Right here. So we've got a little bit of something going on there. So let's select everything. Let's go merge. So M by distance, and let's set that to 0.1. Let's see. There we go. 12 has been sorted out. Give it another check. 0, 0. Intersecting faces. That doesn't really matter. Non-flat faces. That doesn't matter either. And then we've got overhanging faces, which is, well, obviously these down here. So this is all ready for 3D printing if you really wanted. Of course, this orientation probably wouldn't be the best. And there's a couple of other things. Probably if you wanted to print this in any way, you might want to print it this way. But there we have it. Another little clip done with CAD Sketcher. As you can see, CAD Sketcher is really getting on. If you want to have a bit of a laugh, go back 2 months and see the first video of CAD Sketcher compared to where it is now. Things have really changed in a good way. A huge thank you to my patrons. You guys are absolutely awesome. Without you, I truly couldn't make Maker Tales. And a big thank you to my VIP makers, Jem Oskanak and David Fernandez. All of your support really means a lot. And if you are enjoying what I'm making here, you think I'm worthy of your support, I would love to see you there too. Thank you for watching, keep making, and let the quest continue.